Did you know Variety, the children's charity, is the entertainment charity started by a group of show business people who found an abandoned baby in a theatre way back in 1928. These kind-hearted performers raised so much money to help the lost child that they began helping other children, and Variety, the children's charity, was born. Read the full story and support the entertainers charity that supports kids in need today. Visit variety.org.au. You're listening to the School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast with me, Maury Morgan.
Ladies and gentlemen, your next comedian.
Shouldn't drink on an empty head, you know that, don't you?
That is the shittiest heckle I have ever heard in my life.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
What's a bucket list?
You have dangerously underprepared yourself for the shit that is about to get real.
Lehmo is one of Australia's favourite comedians, both on stage and on TV. Star of Utopia, That's Not My Dog, and a regular on the project, Lehmo's comedy naturally dabbles in satire, showmanship and current affairs. He's also one of my favourite comedians, making this last show of 2018 all that extra special. In this School of Hard Knock Knocks podcast episode, Anthony Lehmo Lehmann discloses his original and embarrassing nickname, his journey from Adelaide's Rundle Mall balls to Sydney's Opera House sales, his book, This Shirt Won't Iron Itself, making that jump into being a full-time comic, and advice for you, the up-and-coming comedian. And if you're interested in jumping into comedy or polishing your act in 2019, then here's your chance. Adelaide, Melbourne and Sydney's stand-up comedy courses have been announced and are on sale at www.schoolofhardknockknocks.com. Greg Fleet, Steve Hughes, Julia Wilson, Chris Franklin and Glenn Nicholas are but a few of our guest comedians sharing their wisdom through 2019. And now, here's one of my favourite comedians of all time. It's Lehmo.
Sad, yes. Surprising. Like, you were meeting a bunch of friends down the pub, okay? And they all rock up. Hey, g'day guys, great to see you in the pub. Okay. Well, hang on a sec. Where's Davo? Said he was coming. Oh, Davo. Bit of bad news. Eaten by a shark. Oh, really? What was he doing? He was out surfing. Oh, well, you take your chances, don't you? Let's get a drink. Whereas if they rock up in the pub, he said, hey, where's Davo? Oh, bit of bad news. Davo eaten by a shark. Really? What was he doing? He was home in bed asleep. Shark broke into his house, walked through to the bedroom and ate it. Then it stole all of his gloves and fish fingers and released them back into the ocean.
Good afternoon, Lehmo.
Hello, Maury. It is a pleasure to be with you. You know, Maury is a famous Australian comedy name.
Yeah, Maury Fields.
I know it's spelt differently, but yeah, Maury Fields.
Yes.
Who, of course, is one of the great old school comedians, sadly not with us anymore.
No.
But a very funny man, as is his son Marty, of course.
Marty Fields. Yeah, I grew up on a good solid diet of Hey at Saturdays, so both Maury and Marty were part of that. Yeah, definitely. I think because I only got Maury in when I was a teenager. It was a nickname because there was I'm actually Andrew, my real name, and you're an Anthony.
Yes.
And that's actually my first question is about nicknames, because Lehmo wasn't your first nickname, I believe. I think it was a bit more dubious, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, my nickname for a while, and I revealed this in my book, and I hadn't really spoken about it over the years. Mind you, I didn't really have cause to speak about it, but my nickname was, when I was a kid, it was Turd.
Turd.
Right?
Oof.
And which was given to me. I had 3 older brothers, and we grew up on a farm, and they thought that I was a little shit. Little shit is a turd, as in a sheep's turd.
Yep.
So that's how that came about, and it just bloody stuck. Everyone called me that.
Yep.
Even school teachers would call me that.
Oh.
It was quite bizarre. And I was saved, not many people utter this line, but I was saved by boarding school.
Oh.
So when I went to boarding school in year 10, so I left the farm, went to boarding school in year 10, and no one at boarding, I didn't know anyone there.
Oh,
no one knew me.
Awesome.
So it was an absolute fresh start. So I was able to escape the horrors of the nickname Turd. But whenever I went home, people would call me that. Even now, you know, I'm deep in my 40s. There's still occasionally people who call me that. It's very strange, but my mum used to go nuts when she heard people call me that.
Oh, yeah.
She would be absolutely furious. And my brothers used to deliberately try and get under her skin by calling me that in front of her. But anyway, I've shaken the nickname, gotten rid of the nickname Turd.
Oh,
now, and with a far more pleasant Lehmo.
Lehmo, it is nice. But of course, every single brother, all of your brothers could have also been a Lehmo as well, couldn't they? Because
they could have, but none of them were, oddly enough.
Okay.
And I wasn't Lehmo until I got to boarding school.
Yeah, right.
So my brothers just went by their given names, which is very un-Australian. So my brother Bernard was Bernie.
Yeah.
Kelvin became Kern, and Timothy was Tim, and none of them were Lehmo. So I was the sole Lehmo to come out of 4 boys. And my sister, I guess she was never going to be Lehmo. She was Helen, and everyone calls her Helen.
Yeah, great.
So,
that's a big Catholic family, I believe.
Indeed, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else? There's only a big Catholic family, isn't there?
I guess I'm sure there are big families in other religions, but we always attach it to being Catholic.
It is, it's your stereotype. But it sounds like your older brothers were born in the 1800s, was it?
With those names.
Yeah.
Again, good Catholic names, all named after saints.
Oh, there we go.
Except for Kelvin. I don't think Kelvin was a saint. Anyway.
No, I like to name. I haven't, but I've already got a son. It's too late now. But St Kilda, named after a non-saint, but everyone wonders, was he really? Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, have you never wondered that who St Kilda is? Yeah.
No, I have never wondered that. I'm curious now, though. I'm going to look it up.
Well, the bad news is...
As soon as I get off the phone, I'm Googling St Kilda.
Oh, okay. Well, for the listeners, there is no St Kilda. It is actually an island in Scotland, and it was renamed accidentally, I think, by a cartographer, who probably scribbled something in cursive and it came out as St Kilda. And then someone in Melbourne at the time when they were dividing the land... was thinking of a name for the region, and there was a boat called St Kilda, and it was a Scottish boat, and it was in harbour. Yeah, so it's nothing religious at all, thank God, because it's really the pinnacle of sin in Melbourne, isn't it?
It is indeed. And the name of the St Kilda Football Club. So.
Fantastic. But you're a Hawthorn fan, a tragic Hawthorn fan, I believe. We have one thing in common. Apart from having nicknames, we have another thing in common. My wife's name is Rio Lee, and of course Rioli, as one word, is one of your top players.
What a great Hawthorn name your wife has.
I know.
Has anyone else identified the fact that her name is Rioli?
So my dad, I'm a Collingwood family. My wife, with the name Rio Lee, she's from Chinese background, so doesn't have the generational Collingwood support. So, but when we do watch, my dad and I watch together Hawthorn versus Collingwood just recently, in fact, in the finals for the AFL, the Australian Football League, for those people who have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Came across the screen. It was just quite cute, I guess. Nothing more than that.
Well, there's a Rioli at the West Coast Eagles. There's a Rioli at Richmond, and there was one at Hawthorn until last year. But that name, Rio Lee, your wife's name, there would be, if there are Hawthorn fans listening to this and tragic Hawthorn fans, I bet that if someone has a daughter, they will now go, aha!
There we go.
What a great name. So they can call their daughter Rio, first name, Lee,
in the middle,
name, and then whatever it is.
Perfect. Yes, I could see that. Better than Dippia Domenico, isn't it? It's a bit easier, rolls off the tongue.
Look, if your wife's name was Dippia Domenico, I just can't ask any questions.
She'd be a very hairy woman, I imagine. Now, so you are a tragic Hawthorn fan. You're surprisingly though, because you're from South Australia originally. You haven't gone for the Crows or?
Yeah, Port? I am. So I grew up in the country, and my team in the country had brown and gold stripes on their jumpers. So I was just always a mad Hawthorn fan. And then when the Crows joined the competition, joined the AFL in 1991, the Adelaide Crows, I had Hawthorn had delivered me way too much joy.
That's true.
Across the 80s for me to jump off board and join the Crows. So I stuck with the Hawks, and they've delivered me plenty of joy ever since.
They have. And there is quite a number of comedians who support Hawthorn. I imagine when you do, have you ever done a charity event or a raise for the Hawthorn Club?
Yeah, I mean, I do lots of stuff for Hawthorn.
Yep.
Stuff with Villarook, who's a Hawthorn fan. I've done a couple of things with Pete Rosethorn, who's also a mad Hawthorn fan.
Yep.
Jim Moen also breaks for the Hawks, I believe. And Ernie from Elbow Skin is a Hawthorn fan, and I'm trying to think of Declan Fay and Michael Chamberlain, also Hawthorn fans. Yeah, you're right. There's quite a few of us.
There's quite a few. Yeah, I've got a friend who does get involved in the Hawthorn on a business level with events and raises, and he has no problem getting a comedian for any of those events. Yeah, well, talking about getting comedians together, you just came back from Sydney. You did a JFL, a Just for Laughs event there. At the Opera House, no less.
It was at the Opera, yes.
I looked at the lineup, and I had trouble finding any comedians from Sydney in that lineup.
Yeah, well, now that you mention it, I'm actually struggling to think of any as well. I know Matt Okine was on across the Just Us Festival.
But he's from Brisbane, isn't he?
But it's not, actually, originally he is, yes.
Yeah.
He lives in Sydney now.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
You know what? The only Sydney comic I can think of is Steve Philp, who was doing the audience warm-up.
Oh, there you go.
And wasn't actually part of the broadcast section of the show. Yeah, you're right. We're all from Melbourne or Adelaide.
Yeah. So there you go, Sydney.
Now that I think about it.
What's going on? This is a good opportunity for a little plug. We do a stand-up comedy course. We've been doing it for the last 2 years in Melbourne and also in Adelaide, but we're starting next year in Sydney, so maybe we can help that problem. So next time JFL does their Sydney show, hopefully an actual Sydney comedian can be on it.
There's a little bit of Sydney representation.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, Sydney. Pull your socks up, seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, we know Melbourne's the capital of comedy in Australia.
It is.
But Sydney should have more than none at the Just for Laughs Festival, at the Opera House, for crying out loud.
It is a bit
but
embarrassing.
It was an amazing experience to be at the Opera House. I was there with Justin Hamilton, who I started doing comedy with 24 years ago now.
Yeah, right.
Hamo and I started together. And we started at Bolt's Cafe. That's where we did our first open mic spots. Bolt's Cafe in Adelaide, Rundle Street in Adelaide.
Yeah.
And to be on the same bill at the Opera House.
Wow.
Was kind of cool for us to be able to say, well, that's a hell of a journey we've had. Had a lot of fun in between times, mind you. But it was kind of cool.
No, absolutely.
Wow, this all started at Bolt's Cafe in Adelaide, and here we are at the Opera House.
From the balls to the sales.
That's right.
That could be the name of your next book.
From the balls to sales. I like it.
Yeah, balls to sales.
I like it.
That's a Rundle more balls, by the way, for reference. Anyone who doesn't know Adelaide,
if you're planning a trip to Adelaide, you must check out the balls, of course.
They are. They're like our yellow peril in Melbourne. That yellow squarish thing that gets moved around. What's that called? Do you know that one?
What thing is that? I can't think of that thing.
It used to be a Batman Park opposite the casino, but the casino probably has complained about it. It was this yellow squarish. It was probably 7 foot tall, squarish but angular, and I think it had a proper name, but it was called the Yellow Peril for probably most of the 70s and 80s since it's been developed.
Right.
I think it's as Aussie as the Burke and Will statues on the corner of Collins and Swanston, but yeah. But there you go.
Well, like that can't be missed. If you're in Adelaide, you must go and visit the Malls Balls.
See the balls.
They are famous.
Yeah, it is the Opera House of Adelaide, because that's not much more, is there, in Adelaide for landmarks?
As far as landmarks go, what is there? There's not really.
The stadium, probably.
Much else going on.
The river.
There's a couple of pigs up Rundle Mall.
Yeah.
It can be exciting. There's the Torrens River.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, that really is about it as far as actual landmarks.
No,
go.
That's right. And your tram doesn't even go all the way to North Adelaide.
You know what?
It just
getting
stops.
There. It's getting there. I was in Adelaide. Yesterday, and I drove up O'Connell Street.
Yep.
and the tram is slowly edging past Adelaide Oval.
Oh, right, okay.
Now, I don't know if the plan is to go the length of O'Connell Street up to the top of North Adelaide there,
Yep.
but it's pushing itself in that direction. So one day, I'm holding out hope that the tram will make it all the way through North Adelaide.
Yeah, no, well, there you go. We got a tram. I've been to Adelaide a number of times, and I'm heading back to Adelaide in 2 weeks' time for our Adelaide course with another Adelaidean, sort of, Glenn Nicholas, who started busking in the Rundle Mall next to the Balls.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, he would know the Balls very, very well.
He did. I think that was... In fact, he was probably the landmark in Adelaide back in the 80s. Yeah.
It could well have been him. I'll tell you what, he was The Big Gig, which was a TV show on the ABC, and if your listeners haven't ever heard of the show, they should go and check it out on
absolutely.
YouTube. And Glenn Nicholas was one of the stars of that show, and that show was one of the things that made me want to get into comedy. It was
that right?
so audacious and like nothing I'd ever seen before, and so hilarious. It really opened my eyes into some of the things that were possible as far as comedy was concerned.
It was such anarchy. You had the Doug Anthony All-Stars on there as well.
Yeah.
And it was filmed live and with maybe a 5-second delay or something.
Yeah, crazy. And Wendy Harmer and the Empty Pockets.
Yep.
And Greg Sleep was on it from time to time.
Often, yes.
And the Dougs closed out every show. It was just an amazing production.
Absolutely. And so that's a good segue. I'll go back. You mentioned that you started and that got you into comedy. Because were you an accountant at one time? I heard this rumour.
I was.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's embarrassing.
I was an accountant for 10 years, yes. And there's not many of us who have gone from accounting into comedy. In fact, I've met I think only two others.
Dilrook.
There's Dill, who's also a Hawthorn fan. We've got a lot in common, Dill and I. And the other guy is a bloke called Fred McCauley, who's a Scottish comedian who I met a couple of times in the UK. But that's it. I can't think of another one.
That's it?
He studied accounting, but he says he did accounting, but he actually, I think he might have studied a couple of accounting modules at university. He was never actually an accountant.
Sure.
Yeah, so there's a few lawyers go into comedy, which makes sense. You know, you've got to be good with your words. But yeah, not a natural fit.
No, it's not.
Or natural flow from accounting to comedy.
And when I interviewed Dilrook earlier this year on this podcast, I said to him, and I set it up, I said, mate, you've got this massive handicap here in Australia. And I was leading him down a path, and I said, mate, you're a former accountant. Obviously, I was alluding to his Sri Lankan heritage, but went straight for the accounting. Good stand-up comedy trick there.
It's a massive disadvantage. I will say this, though, an advantage in the sense that there's only two of us. So, you know, there's a world of accounting jokes that just Dill and I are sharing.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how big the audience is who wants to hear those accounting jokes, but
do accountants go out to watch comedy?
Look, I did, which is how I got into comedy. But do other accountants? I'm sure they do.
They do. But
what happens these days, though, is people don't call themselves accountants anymore.
Oh, yes.
They say they're in business advisory, or they're consultants or financial managers. They don't say accounting because it has a sort of a boring undertone.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. And well, I mean, you've got a lot of mediums to make your accounting jokes anyway, because you've written a book, as you alluded to earlier. Is this This Shirt Won't Iron Itself? Is that the one?
That is correct, and that's kind of has a dual meaning. That one is it's something my mum used to say.
Yep.
So she would say, can you do this for me? And she'd say, the shirt won't iron itself, and meaning you've got to get off your ass and do something. So she used to say, these dishes won't do themselves, this bed won't make itself, the car won't clean itself, etc. That was her way of saying, get off your ass and do your jobs.
Yep.
And the second reference is when I finally quit my accounting job to get into comedy, I'd kind of really lost interest for the last 6 months, and I knew, really the last 3 months. like really, really lost interest in the last 3 months. And because I just wanted to get into comedy full time.
Yep.
And when I eventually went into my boss's office to quit, I sat down and he said, "Oh, you're about to resign, aren't you?" And I said, "How do you know?" And he said, "Because you haven't ironed your shirt for the last 3 months."
Oh, right.
And I went, "Oh, yeah." Right. And I said to him, "Well, the shirt won't iron itself." So that's kind of that's the double meaning.
Nice.
In the book.
Oh,
But
nice.
yeah, I really stopped. I stopped wearing a tie to work. I stopped ironing my shirts. I stopped shaving. I didn't really look very accounting-like in the end. I looked more like a homeless bloke who's shooting some big issues out the front of the building.
You're going to be a comedian or a meth head. One of the two.
Well, I think they were worried I might have had a meth lab set up at home.
Yeah, they were worried you're going to walk
my
in.
general appearance.
Right, come in. What was that movie? Falling Down. Come in with your briefcase that's empty. It's got nothing in it. Kill everyone.
Exactly. I in those dying days of my life as an accountant, Justin Hamilton and I ran a Tuesday night gig in Adelaide at PJ O'Brien, and it was a really good, successful gig, and we did a pretty good job of running it. We used to get a really good crowd in there every week, and every Tuesday after the show, we would go to Q Bar, which was on Rundle Street in Adelaide, and one night we were standing at the end of the bar, and there was Hamo, myself, and Adam Hills, and we were standing there having a drink at the end of the bar, and I turned around, and behind us a curtain was on fire. And I was like, "Oh, what the hell's going on there?" Anyway, we kind of tried to call staff over. Anyway, the joint burnt down.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy. The whole place obviously had to be evacuated. Anyway, Q Bar burnt down. That was the end of Q Bar in Adelaide. It reopened years later as something else. And out the front of the building, journalists turned up and, fire brigade, obviously, everything else. And I spoke to a couple of journalists who were there. So not the next day's paper because it was too late, but the day after there was a story about it in the paper. And the story read, something blah, 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 fire. And it said patron Anthony Lehmann said that it started with a curtain in the corner of the room, and then the place just went up really quick, something like that. Anyway, my boss at the accounting firm I was working at calls me into his office. He said, he holds the newspaper article up. He says, "What were you doing at a nightclub at 3:00 on Wednesday morning?"
Oh.
And I went, "Oh, yeah, right." Because I started work there at 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was still out at a nightclub at 3 a.m. So that was just another indicator that I'd slightly lost interest in my day job.
He wasn't worried that you were a potential pyromaniac.
No.
Just that you didn't clock in on time.
That I was probably a little bit tired in at the office that day.
Yeah, you smell a lot like smoke today, Anthony. What's going on?
Yeah.
Burning
and
plastic.
you're wearing the same clothes you've worn for 4 days, and you don't have shoes on. Yeah, it's funny. When I called 000 for that fire, right?
Yeah.
So we're running down the stairs. I called 000, and they said, and they say fire, police, or ambulance. So I say fire.
Yep.
And then the next call, they say, "Which city you in?" Say Adelaide. And then someone answers the phone and says, "Got a fire, mate?" I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Where are you?" I said, "On Rundle Street, Adelaide." And they say, "What number on Rundle Street?"
Yeah.
I said, "I don't know." He said, "Can you find out?" And I said, "Mate, it's not that hard to miss. It's the one that's on fire."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Okay, we'll see you shortly."
Yeah. It's...
and needless to say, they found the building that was up in flames.
Oh, there we go. And and so did all his debt, I imagine, as well, with the insurance payout. No?
Yes, I imagine there was of some description. But yeah, it was years later. It took 2 or 3 years for a new club to open up there called Sugar.
Oh, there we go.
Which is also a fringe venue. Anyway.
There we go. That's awesome. Well, you mentioned Fringe, so I'm going to go there. Are you doing any Fringe shows for next year's Fringe Festival in Adelaide?
So I'm going to be over in Adelaide for a weekend of the Fringe, but I don't have any shows penciled in at this stage.
Yep.
And I'm not doing a solo show there.
No.
But I am doing a show in Launceston at the Lonnie Comedy Festival, which is a new festival starting up next year.
That's right. Chris Franklin, is he behind that? Or is he just one of the... Yes, I saw that. He said
Chris,
big news and then announced it.
Yeah. So Chris is absolutely one of the organisers of that festival. And they're all very excited about it down there in Lonnie. So I'm doing that and Melbourne Comedy Festival.
Melbourne Comedy. For those people who are not from Australia, Lonnie, as Lehmo has shortened, is Launceston, and it's pronounced Launceston, even though you'd look at it and read it as Launceston. And it's the top part of Tasmania. I assume tickets are going to be pricey for the Spirit that particular week.
Yeah, I would have thought get in early would be my advice, but it's a beautiful part of the country.
Absolutely.
In fact, the whole of Tassie is fantastic. So get on down there for that Lonnie Comedy Festival.
Lonnie Comedy Festival. It's awesome. Now, we are slightly off order, but that's fine. I'm going to go back a little bit to some advice. So the people that listen to this podcast are often newcomers to comedy. Maybe they've been in the game for a year, 2 years. They might be someone who's interested in starting stand-up comedy and wants to know how. Obviously, the rules change all the time. But if you were to give any advice to an up-and-coming comedian, what would it be?
Look, the number one bit of advice I always give comics is do as many gigs as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
Just do gigs. So do heaps of gigs, write as much material as you can, and record your spots and listen back to them.
Yep.
They're the three main bits of advice I'd give you as regards stand-up. And I'd say find comedy buddies as well, people you trust and connect with that you can talk to about your comedy. Because it's nice to have a handful of reliable mates that you can ring and say, hey, I've had a thought about this bit. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Or you just sit down, even just catching up, you sit down, you talk shit together, and you just generate comedy.
Yep.
So get your comedy posse together, and just do as many gigs as you can.
Yeah.
Just keep booking gigs, and from a business perspective, because you are a small business when you're a stand-up comedian. Yep. Get to know, people who run the rooms, because they're the people who book you.
Yeah.
And always be really grateful for the stage time they give you.
Yep.
Because they don't have to give you stage time. So when they do, just make sure that you're grateful.
Yeah, right.
For it. And don't ever treat a club owner like they owe you something, because they don't owe you anything.
Yeah.
And if you disappear off the face of the earth, their club's going to be just fine without you. You know what I mean? Yeah, some comedians, I've seen them come and go over the years. New comics come in, and all of a sudden they think they're a rock star on day one.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're a complete arsehole. And they think, well, I'm never going to book you again in this room. So be really grateful for all the stage time that you get. And if you are grateful, it'll have an exponential effect. You'll get more and more stage time.
Oh, that's awesome. Has that been a running theme? We've met, as I mentioned, off air. We met a couple of times very briefly. You had no idea who I was, and you gave me a lot for a stranger coming off and introducing himself to you. You've been super nice. I know nice can sometimes be a euphemism for not very attractive, but what I mean by that is you come across as someone you seem to focus. You give 100% attention when you're talking to me, at least. And I noticed that your success, going from a country town to, all these handicaps, A, from a country town, B, you're an accountant, C, you come from South Australia and Adelaide. So,
really
3 strikes.
Had the odds against me.
You did. And here you are, books, TV. Of course, everyone knows you from Utopia, but you've done other TV shows, of course, as well. Radio, you're into Triple M now.
Yep.
Former in another radio station prior to that. Movies, That's Not My Dog, I think was the most recent one. Was that Shane Jacobson?
Correct. In fact, this year. This 2018.
Just came out, yeah. That's right. Awesome. Yeah. Now, I'm just, all these successes, what has there been, I'm assuming it's because you're nice, but maybe it's something else.
Look, I guess being nice it's not going to work against you. I don't think, even though people say sometimes nice guys come last. I mean, you say nice. I just say, for me, it's just normal, I guess. You know, you meet people and you be respectful and you talk to them. Maybe it's that country upbringing that I had back in South Australia taught me. I had niceness beat into me as a kid.
Right.
I didn't have it beat, but metaphorically beat into me as a kid. But I think, you know what, it's hard work wins the day. That's what gets you all these opportunities.
Yeah.
Hard work and just, you know, treating people well absolutely helps. There's no question about that. But it really is hard work. It's the amount of work you do and the quality of the work you do, and the combination of those two things will deliver the results you're after.
Perfect.
And some people are fortunate enough to be unbelievably gifted.
Yep.
So perhaps they don't have to work as hard, but you're never going to find someone at the top of the tree who hasn't worked hard.
Yeah, that's right.
Like everyone there. Like people might look at Carl Barron and go, oh, it's so effortless. You know, it doesn't even lie. But you can bet your bottom dollar that behind the scenes, Carl Barron absolutely works his arse off.
Yes.
To create the comedy that he creates.
Yes, and I believe he's coming out with a book, according to his agent. So,
oh, is he? Right. Well, I imagine that will be hilarious, and I also imagine it will be a bestseller. He's a goddamn freak, Carl. People love him so much.
Yeah,
and I get it because he's hilarious. But people just love him, even to the point where, I mean, he had a stand-up special on ABC 2. I think it was last year. And now I was looking at Twitter and I saw Carl Barron was the number 5 trending topic in Australia.
Wow.
And I thought, geez, what's Carl doing? So I click on it. His special was on ABC 2 at like 9:30 on a Thursday night.
Yep.
Yet, I mean, ABC 2 shows that are on 9:30 on a Thursday night never trend on Twitter.
No.
But there he was. I mean, he's just an amazing comic.
No, that's easy. He's good. Hopefully I can get him on here, but I've asked his agent and they've said, nah, he has to finish his book, so we'll let you know.
He's a hard man to track down.
I imagine so.
Or a hard man to pin down, I should say.
Yeah, no, you can go see him. You can pay money to see him, but having an interview is a different thing. Well, talking about pinning down, where can someone come and see you? What have you got coming up in the next couple of months? Obviously, you'll be in Adelaide, as you mentioned, and Launceston, but maybe before then?
Yes. I have got, what am I doing? I'm going on a couple of cruises.
Yep.
I'm not sure which cruise ships they are, but I've got a comedy cruise in a couple of weeks in December and then one early February. What else am I doing? I've got a gig at I think it's the Manhattan Hotel on about the 17th of January. You can go to my website, actually, and get dates there, lehmo.com.au.
Perfect. That's good. That's probably where you...
That's probably the best place. Probably the best place for me to send people, actually.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And given that you've gone from books to radio to TV to movies, what's next? A stage show?
I don't think you'll see me in a stage show anytime soon. Cats.
Well, Shane
maybe.
Jacobson might put you in one.
Oh, Shane Jacobson's way more talented than me. There's no way I can do
He's a good
what
dancer too. Have you seen him dance?
Oh, he's got it all. He's a quadruple threat, Shane Jacobson.
Yeah, he is.
He really can act, he's funny, he sings, he dances. He's got it all.
He is.
So no stage production for me, unless fat bloke on couch eating pizza is a role that comes up in a stage play sometimes.
Gogglebox, the stage show or something, is it? Yeah.
Hey, there it is. I could do that.
Nice one.
I could do that.
Oh, fantastic. So I think you've pretty much answered my last two questions, which is where people can get hold of you and if they want to book you, are you an approachable comedian? Can people for sports clubs or conferences or whatever get you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Again, on my website, contact details are there, or you can just hit me up on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook.
Beautiful.
And we can take it from there.
Awesome. Well, fantastic. Lehmo, Anthony, I'm not going to use your original nickname. It's just too rude. No,
It is too rude. No, I've buried that nickname well and truly.
I really hope no one listens to this podcast and starts a new habit of calling you that word. You'd blame me for it, wouldn't you?
Someone will heckle me with it. They'll just yell it out in a crowd.
Yeah.
And it'll really put me off my game too. So if you're a heckler, do hecklers listen to your podcast?
I think, no doubt. Yeah, I think that's all we appeal to.
Okay.
Arseholes,
all
yeah.
right. Any hecklers? That's a good bit of fuel there for you. Just yell that out. But Maury, it's been a pleasure, mate. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
Excellent.
Always love talking about comedy.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much. Have a great rest of the week.
Good on you. Thanks, mate.
Cheers.